One of the things that we kind of assume when we practice meditation is that somehow we're trying to control the thinking. And that's not the case. We're not trying to control the thinking. One of the ways that is helpful to practice is, I used to say, bring your attention away from thinking to being aware of the body breathing at the belly. A better way to practice is to just focus here. Don't even start there. Just focus here and have it be that this is what you're interested in right now. This is what you're interested in. You're not interested in that right now. So if that starts talking and you start noticing that's talking, just come back to this. But the way you're coming back to this is that you're not interested in what that's doing right now. So that you can get to a place with the practice, if you practice it that way, that you're really using your intention and your concentration and your focus, right? You can focus your attention. You're using your intention, your determination, your concentration, and your focus to stay here, So if you do that consistently, the time will come, and even if a thought occurs, right, it won't even fully form before you leave and come back here. Right? You just start noticing that a thought is starting to happen, and you become aware that it's a thought, and you come back here. Right? That's the way you want to practice. You want to have this be more important than that, just for this period that you're doing the practice. Have it be more. And one of the reasons that I'm suggesting that is because if you try and control this, it'll get worse. If you try and control whatever, this is a law of the universe. It's one of the things that you should remember and remember and remember. Whatever you resist will persist. Whatever you resist will persist. So if you resist something, you're keeping it there by resisting it. I mean, if you look at the logic of this, in order to resist thinking, right, what do you have to have? Yeah, you have to have thinking. You see, that's how this works. In order to resist something, what you're resisting has to be there to resist it. So you're keeping it there by resisting it, right? If you let it go, you're not resisting it anymore. You're not trying to control it anymore. You're letting thinking do whatever it wants to do. But you are not focusing on that because you're practicing meditation, meaning that you're focusing on this. And even when you're focusing on this, that's not the end of the process. Why are we focusing on the body breathing? We're focusing on the body breathing so we can eliminate the biggest thing that is in the way of experiencing the awareness, which is the thought process. That's why we're practicing focusing on the breath, and also because the breath is an anchor to the present moment. Whenever you're aware of the breath, you're aware of the present moment, because that's where the breath happens. Okay? But even then, right, focusing on the breath, why are we focusing on the breath? Well, we're focusing on the breath to get into the present moment, but in the present moment, what's happening? Not just the breath. The other thing that's always only in the present moment is awareness. So now you have that which is always in the present moment, which is awareness, focusing on that which is always in the present moment, the breath. Right? And so when you're focusing on the breath, one of the things that you want to be clear about, and this is why the teaching is so important, is that the whole practice that we're practicing is to become aware of being aware, is to become aware of being the awareness that's aware of the breath. That's the purpose of the whole practice. The idea being that if you stay out of the thinking activity consistently for a period of time, right, that it'll dawn on you that it's not just being aware of the body breathing, but it's being aware of the body breathing. You see? That's what we're after here, is being aware of being aware. Right? That's the missing piece. That's what we have ignored, is the awareness. Right? And so being aware of being aware opens up a whole new realm of possibility, being aware of being aware. Why? Because if I'm being aware of being aware, then when life is happening and the thoughts are happening and the emotions are happening, right? Instead of identifying with how I feel and what I think, and that's all there is, and that'll determine what I do, instead of identifying with what I think and how I feel, and that's all there is, and that'll determine what I do, it does, doesn't it? You only do what you feel like doing, you only do what you think to do, right? So that's determining what I do. That gives me a very limited life, right? So if I become aware of awareness, now I'm aware of being aware of thinking, I'm aware of being aware of emotions, and I'm also aware of the truth. I'm aware of how things work. I'm aware of the way that life happens. And so I'm aware of the way life happens. And one of the ways I'm aware of life happens is that if you want to be healthy physically, you have to get enough exercise, right? That's not something locked in a vault somewhere. That's common information, right? But that common information doesn't make much of a difference for people, right? Everybody knows that if you want to be healthy, you got to get enough exercise. Then what stops people from exercising? What they think and how they feel, right? I went to the gym yesterday to exercise. I'm not talking about me, but this is what happens. I went to the gym yesterday to exercise. I felt good about it and everything. I came home, and today I woke up and my schedule called for going to the gym again, but I really didn't feel like going. And then I had thoughts. I really didn't feel like going, and then I had thoughts that said, you can afford to miss one day of going to the gym, don't sweat it, let yourself relax, And then the next day, I felt even less like going to the gym. And then the thought said, hey, take a little vacation from going to the gym. Enjoy yourself. Life isn't about going to the gym all the time, Don't become addicted to exercise. Okay? This is how it goes, right? But if you become aware of the awareness that's aware of those thoughts, and you're aware of the awareness that's aware of those emotions, and you know this awareness is your true nature, you know this awareness is the natural state, it's what I am other than the personality that's thinking this way and feeling this way. So I'm aware of that, and because I'm aware of that, now I can be aware that my thoughts are just thoughts. It's not me thinking. And my feelings are just feelings. It's not me feeling the feelings. They're happening. The thoughts and the feelings are happening, right? And so I can look at them, and I can look at them with some separation from them and see that they're not serving me. To believe those thoughts is not serving me. To follow how I feel is not serving me. And so because I see that, then I do what works instead of, no matter what I think and no matter how I feel, I do what works. And if I do what works, I'll be physically healthy. It's as simple as that. The same thing is true about meditation. The things that I say here and talk to you about are intended to educate you about the situation that you're dealing with. You're dealing with a predicament. You're in a predicament here. You were born, and after you were born, well, it occurred to you that you were born, and after it occurred to you that you were born, right, you were given a socialization and an education, and the socialization and an education, right, is taking the natural state that existed when you were born and covering it over. Sometimes they talk about unpeeling the onion as a way of getting to your true nature, right? It's being covered over by years and years of thoughts and feelings and situations and experiences and traumas and educations and socializations and, being somebody's child, somebody's brother, somebody's sister, and then somebody's boyfriend or girlfriend, and somebody's husband, somebody's wife. All these situations and circumstances. And part of the conditioning that we learn is that happiness is a function of circumstances. That's what we learn. Happiness is a function of circumstances. And so the game of life is about having enough control over the circumstances so that I can have the circumstances that I want, and then I'll be happy, right? And so I need to have a lot of money for this, right? So I have to start working to make as much money as I can to control the circumstances, and I have to practice avoiding the situations that make me unhappy. And if you're a part of that situation, I have to get rid of you. And if where I live is part of that situation, I have to move. And if my job is part of that situation, I have to get a different job. You see, so we're on the run. We're always on the run. We're always on the run from anything that's threatening our well-being, and our well-being is a function of the circumstances or the situations that we experience in our lives. And as long as that's the case, you're screwed. You're screwed. Because you can never control the circumstances. You can never control the circumstances. And when you fail to control the circumstances, that's called upset, isn't it? You're upset. You know, I can't continue to experience my state of well-being. I'm upset now because the circumstances got in my way. You got in my way. The circumstances, what happened got in my way. And so I have to get better at controlling these circumstances. Ultimately, thinking itself is a circumstance, isn't it? Ultimately, your emotions are a circumstance, aren't they? They're happening, just like everything else is happening. Your emotions are happening, your thoughts are happening, your sensations in your body are happening. They're all circumstances, right? There's only one thing that's not a circumstance, and that's the awareness of the circumstances. As I was talking about with Jerry, his awareness of not understanding what the word meant. That awareness understood that he didn't understand the word, didn't it? That's pretty interesting. The awareness understood that he didn't understand the word that he was looking at because he was having a heat stroke. Well, your true nature is wisdom. Your true nature is wisdom. In other words, your true nature sees things as they really are. That's wisdom. You see things as they really are. How are they really? If you don't exercise, you're not healthy. That's seeing things as they really are, right? If you don't meditate, you won't wake up from this bad dream. You know, I was listening to a teacher talk the other day, and he said, I think it was Paul Henderman too, and he said, the difference between the dreaming we do at night, you know, when you're dreaming at night, it's real. You know what I mean? You're really scared, or you're really angry, whatever it is, it's real, right? And then the morning comes, you open your eyes, and it's like, it only takes 10 seconds for that whole thing to have no effect, right? Only takes 10 seconds to have, but this dream, there's no morning coming, right? In this dream, and you know, one of the things the teachers say is that don't kid yourself. The dream that you dream at night is being produced by your mind. The dream that you're dreaming now is being produced by your mind. It's exactly the same thing. Just because there's 8 billion people in the same dream doesn't make it not a dream. It just makes it a big dream, a bad dream, right? An out of control dream, right? And there's no morning coming in this dream, right? That's why meditation is so important, because meditation is taking the conceptual understanding about the situation we're in and doing something about it. Meditation is an action that you're taking. You know, the wisdom teachings are action teachings. They're not just learning teachings, they're action teachings. We don't just learn about the situation we're in, we actually take an action, which is to sit still and become silent, and we move from the conceptual understanding of what's happening to sitting there directly experiencing what's happening. You get the difference? We move from thinking about what's happening, which is how we live our lives, to actually experiencing what's happening. That's a different thing than thinking about what's happening. So when you move your attention to the body breathing and you're sitting there being aware of the body breathing, you're actually experiencing life instead of thinking about it. So that's actually real. That's actually real. And that's why if you practice meditation consistently over time, right, that the possibility of waking up, right, and if you wake up, this is why people talk about these ecstatic experiences that they have, you know, these enlightenment experiences. All that is that you have been practicing sufficiently and you have been learning about the truth sufficiently that you have an opening happen in your life. And when that opening happens, your personality isn't there. And because your personality isn't there, all the stress and concern and worry and trauma that you were experiencing as a personality, right, isn't there now. And so you experience this elation, like, wow, man, you know what I mean? But the only reason it's a wow, man, is because you're usually in this very condensed contracted state of mind, living in this thought process all the time, right? But if you practice meditation, right, an opening will happen where that falls away, and then it's like, oh, you know, the normal everyday experience of living life turns into an acid trip. Turns into, and if you haven't taken acid, you wouldn't know the difference, but it does turn into an acid trip. It's like, you know, I mean, I can report to you that back in the day I took some LSD and experienced an acid trip, right? But since then, through practicing meditation and studying these teachings, I've experienced the same thing without taking anything. And when I say that, I'm not saying I experience all the hallucinations, you know, no. But part of the acid trip that's similar to being awake is the expanded state of awareness, where you have this experience that everything is perfect. Everything is perfect. Everything is okay. There's no problem. And I'm enjoying this. I'm really enjoying being here. I'm really enjoying my life. I'm really enjoying my existence. I'm really enjoying my existence. There's nothing stopping me from enjoying my existence. It feels free, it feels open, it feels receptive, it feels like a panoramic view of life. And I can see things as they really are, you know, and I can see other people as they really are, and I can see how innocent they are. I can see that, you know, they're dreaming something and they're in the dream right now, right? But they don't know that. They're innocent. You know, so what they do is only because they're doing what they're doing because of the dream. And therefore I can have compassion for them. There's only two possibilities in terms of people's behavior. Either they're completely unconscious and they have no idea what they're doing, in which case you should have compassion, right? Or they do know what they're doing and they're really confused and lost, and you should have more compassion for that. They're the only two possibilities, right? So if you keep yourself clear about that when you're relating to other people, and you're clear about that in relationship to yourself, that you should have compassion for yourself. Because when you're in the dream, you behave just like they do. You know, when you're in your dream, you know, when you get angry, you know, when your conditioning is what's functioning, and the conditioning has you, you know, avoiding people or trying to get next to people or trying to get more money or trying to avoid things that you're scared of or things that threaten you. You know, one of the things that is part of this process, if you understand it, through practicing the educational part of it, studying the teachings, you know, one of the things that becomes evident in this is that one of the ways to deal with the inevitable things that are going to happen in our lives, the worst of all being death itself, is to not hide from it. Stop hiding from it. Stop ignoring it. Intentionally think about death. Intentionally think about it. Do the opposite that people do. Most people avoid it. They don't think about it. They try and keep it, you know, out, right? So if you're going to be awake and you're going to allow yourself to experience the possibility of being awake and the freedom of being awake, the things you used to run from and you were afraid of, go toward them. Think about them intentionally. Think about your death intentionally. You know, allow yourself to come to terms with the truth. Allow yourself to come to terms with your life. If you allow yourself to come to terms with your life, you come to terms with the fact that this is a very temporary situation. You don't have time to mess around. You don't have time to be caught up in a lot of bullshit. You know, you have a very limited amount of time here, right? And the possibility and the opportunity that your life is to wake up and experience it. That's what the possibility is. That's why they say in that saying in the Advaita Vedanta teachings, right? Sat Chit Ananda. Existence, consciousness, happiness. That's one thing. It's an experience of being alive.